Hey, this is Whole Health with Truly Writer. And again, my writing media pen name is Truly Jacob a Writer, so you probably won't see my face. So I'm trying to make it so you can see the screen better. This is my second take of this video. So I had this video, it seemed like it was about 100 minutes long, going over this, almost done, and then someone knocks on the door and claims I'm being too loud, and I wasn't shouting, I was talking in a more gentle voice, and they claimed they could hear me from the other room. So that is why I had to do the video over, because I was doing it at night. And I have done other videos at night, and they didn't complain about those videos, and I had a gentle, quiet voice. So they claim to be sensitive. I think this person may have superpowers where they can hear way too much through the wall. Like, they have excellent hearing. It's so good that when you're trying to have a gentle, quiet, reasonable sounding voice, they can still hear you all the way from the other side of the room. But the thing is, it doesn't make logical sense because when I play my music on a lower quiet setting, like this tone or gentle a volume of a voice, they don't complain of hearing the music, but they could hear my voice from another room. So yes, I am using YouTube as a venting tool to be like, I'm in a toxic environment. I would like to get out of this toxic environment and be in a positive environment where I have the freedom to do videos or learn correctly or do a video that expresses why I don't believe in these false Bibles anymore, and be able to give my opinion, my viewpoint, my perspective, my idea, and someone not come barging into my room when I'm almost done and be like, "You're bothering me." How did they hear what I was talking about? Were they listening to the devil or Satan? Because that's what it seems like was really happening to me, is the devil, Satan, or an evil individual told that person to come all of a sudden barging into my room when I'm trying to have a gentle, calm, nighttime voice when the other individual is sleeping in the next room. So, sorry for this long tangent, but if you're in a toxic, negative environment, to create a positive environment, you must talk about the negativity to calm yourself down, to release those negative emotions, so that way you can have peace and calmness. So that's why I'm venting. So if you have a problem with talking about negativity and what's wrong with the environment worldwide, you might not want to watch this video. That is my disclaimer. So I am going through different things, different materials that are very similar, and comparing them and trying to be like, okay, why was I taught the Christian religion? Why was I taught that Adam and Eve, that it was okay for Eve to have the rib of Adam and be genetically made from that whole entire rib of Adam? Because that seems like Eve definitely had at least all the rib genetics of Adam, if she really came from Adam. So you have this whole thing, the premise of these religions is that, hey, the Lord cloned Adam and took some of Adam's genetics and made Eve. And he's like, okay, I've designed you to be husband and wife. But that doesn't seem like that would be 100% compatibility now that I'm thinking about it when it comes to genetics. Like, you're missing a lot of genetics from, you know, Adam, possibly. I mean, how was it taken? Did the rib have all of Adam's genetics? And it's like, okay, here's just the girly version of Adam. I don't know. Anyways, your story hour album 1, it goes over this, and it was like, yeah, Eve came from Adam's rib. So, and it goes over the fall of what happened with the serpent, and I realized, oh, the serpent talked more than once. So, like in the Bible, they're so broad and vague. There's missing details to the story where it's like, okay, it seemed to me always like, okay, the way these broad and vague Bibles are, it's like, okay, here is the serpent, and it talks once to Eve, and it seemed like only Eve, and then it's like, oh, they show it's Uncle Dan and Aunt Sue, I think is, yeah, Your Story Hour. They narrated, again, it's Your Story Hour, narrated by Your Story Hour, copyright in 1979, but here on Amazon Audible, it is released 2908, and it's done in English. Okay, so moving on. So you then have like Adam and Eve genetically related to each other through a rib, and they have sex with each other, and they have Cain and Abel, and then Abel kills his brother because Cain wants to offer the Lord a sacrifice of, okay, I picked this fruit, these vegetables from the garden, here's my fruit offering. And it's like, no, it's not acceptable. You have to kill a living being or whatever, and sacrifice a living being animal on the thing, because they did get kicked out of the garden. Okay, so then, again, there's 24 chapters in this, so I'm going to try to review them as fast as possible. So you have then, Noah building the ark. They get on the ark. They were very clear that when it came to Shem, Ham, and Japheth, their wives, they each had one individual wife, that what am I trying to say? That they did not know the names of Shem, Ham, and Japheth wife. So what they ended up doing is, we're just gonna refer to them as Shem, Ham, and Japheth's wives. So they didn't get named because they're like, the Bible doesn't have those details, so we're not going to use that. Okay, so they go on the boat. It floods. It rains so much that it floods the whole entire world. And then eventually dry ground, the water recedes, and then there's dry ground. And then they come out, and it mentions in this story that the mountains didn't look as beautiful, pretty, and it seemed like the colors were different than before the flood. So there was this whole situation that happened where you have way more positive colors. There's more beauty in the mountains and the scenery and the landscape. And then you come out and it's like way less beautiful. So that stood out to me like, okay, what exactly happened on that ark where the colors drastically change? Because it doesn't go into detail and say that the Lord God during the flood process changed the colors to be more beautiful, or the more scenery to be more beautiful to uh you know, here's a stark difference of like, yeah, stuff is really wrong. You know, it doesn't really go into those details and show you like the before and after. So, which makes me think whoever did your story hour, they had different Bibles. There could be even pictures in this Bible where they, with the colors that we have, they might try to give you of, okay, an illustration of, here's the more beautiful colors, um, and this is how it would have looked, and then this is the colors we have now, or whatever, or here's worse colors, and that's how it came across, is like you have better beauty versus, darker, and stuff isn't as beautiful. Because how did they know that information? Because that seemed like a very specific detail that it's like they're not going, they're trying to follow along with the Bibles that they have for the most part, and not putting the theater drama part in they're putting the theater drama into it, but they're trying to go with the details and stay true to the details of the Bible that they have. That's what I got from how they were talking. So then the next chapter, chapter 4. So that was chapter 1 through 3 before. It goes over the Tower of Babel. And they were very specific, and they're like, Marduk was the king of the gods, and that's who they were worshiping. And there was a guy named Judah. And then he was in charge of the temple funds. And then someone came and was like, let's do a baby sacrifice. And so literally they were gonna kill and sacrifice this baby. And it was like where are all these details coming from? Like, how did they get the name Marduk? Because in all the Bibles that I have access to and have bought so far, and I'm still going over more, it was like these details of Marduk, king of the gods, was not in there. And then it goes into the whole thing, okay, then God confounded the language, but they mention it's one language, and that one language got confounded, which, like a red alert kind of went off in my brain of red alert, red alert, red alert, you've been taught wrong. People all over the world, they're like, oh, I speak a different language. I speak Chinese, I speak Japanese, I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, I speak French, I speak German, I speak English. And then you have people are like, well, I speak, an accent of English. There's Irish and Scottish, and you have, the British accent and the Australian accent, and then you have the American accent, and then you have it's more like North American English accent, and then you have the Southern accent, and then you have the Filipinos that try to speak English, and then you don't understand them at all. And so it's like, okay, it's really supposed to be one language, and somehow the whole language from all over the world is supposed to come back together. You're supposed to have proper sounds of all the letters of the alphabet. So, so it just seemed like it got split, where people no longer understood each other for some reason. but you could relearn things and you could still be successful in your life, versus now it seems like whatever happened with the world, it's worse than what happened at the Tower of Babel, because you don't even have the proper pronunciation of all the letters, you don't have the proper definition and meanings of all the words, whether it's a negative word or a positive word. And people are making up stuff and they're like, just trust my word for it. Trust that I'm telling you the truth. You don't have to do any scientific evidence yourself to see if what I'm saying is true. You don't have to test anything out for yourself. Just believe my word. And so it's like there's inconsistencies in the United States government, in the Christian religion, and everyone seems okay with it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with everything being super negative, and I don't want to learn properly. I don't care about teaching people properly how to pronounce all the letters of the alphabet, how they're supposed to be, and defining words properly with the proper definition. I don't care. Like, here, let's give everyone a crappy education. And so you have a very stupid society, and I'm in this stupid society even though I want to learn correctly. You know, there's the powers to be that it's like, in the 70s and the 1800s and the 1900s and the 300s, was the educational system superior actually to the educational system that has been put in place in today's society? For if it is a superior intellectual educational system, then we really need to go back to that and get rid of the crappy educational system that is not working and making our lives a success or not a success. So, and we need to stop using improper terminology where, oh, I speak a different language. No, you speak a certain section, or you speak the same language but in a different way. That's how it should be described. But, you know, you go to a different country, I speak Japanese, I speak Chinese, I speak English, I speak Spanish. No, we're supposed to all be speaking a certain section of a language. Or it could be a different accent of the same language. Who knows what's really going on? But people are not using the proper terminology. So I'm not okay with that, but everyone seems okay with, you know, speaking improperly, defining words improperly. No one really cares. Well, then your life is never gonna be truly successful, because you need to be able to speak properly, or you at least need to be able to learn how to do things without speaking, and do it properly without speaking at all in order to be successful. Because if there is truly the whole principle of blessing and cursing, you can speak blessings over other people's lives or your own life, or you can speak curses or negativity over your life or other people's lives, and then it could come to pass. So to me, it's very dangerous if this is truly some principles are able to be applied worldwide. It seems very dangerous to continue this process of, hey, I'm okay with speaking wrong. Do you want to hurt yourself through your words? Because there's power in your words, right? There's the whole New Age movement, or, you know, yoga, and like, you gotta think positivity and eventually the positivity will come. Well, maybe if more if you're having trouble getting super positive, maybe it's because the pronunciation of the letters and the definition of the words is wrong, and that's why we're all having problems being super positive. So, just a theory. This is a perspective. I know something's wrong because I don't know how to be successful in my life. No matter what I do, it seems like I just fail. So my way of fixing things is, let's start from the age of 0 educationally, with learning the alphabet all over again the proper way and a proper accent with the proper sounds. And then maybe like there would be tons and tons of improvement with the proper definition of words. And if I speak properly, would that actually bring tremendous success into my life and extreme positivity, just being able to speak properly? So continuing on, so chapter 5, it goes over, the world changing. You have Abraham, and he married his half sister and made Sarah his wife. So you have, again, more incest happening. Not only, Adam and Eve's children are having sex with each other, but now you have Abraham too, and genetically related to each other. So the incest is continuing to happen. So then you have chapter 6, Lot picks land. Lot is rescued by Abraham, and then this is very specific, and it was like the angels and the Lord came and visited Abraham. So that's not clear in the broad and vague Bibles that I have read, where it's they're like, it describes 2 men coming and warning Abraham that like the Lord's gonna send someone to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And so then Lot's wife looks back and she thinks it's unfair that they have to leave. So it's like, didn't she get the message of warning too? Like, is something not registering in her brain, that it's like there's really bad stuff going on in Sodom and Gomorrah and we have to leave this area, otherwise if you look back you'll be turned into a pillar of salt. And so she was turned into a pillar of salt. Then it goes on in chapter 8. There's this huge discussion with Sarah, because there's this promise that Abraham and Sarah are going to have a son. Having a hard time conceiving and bearing a son. And so Sarah's like, take my handmaiden Hagar, and she'll be like a second wife to you. Well, all the other versions of the Bible that I have, they didn't say anything about Hagar actually becoming a second wife. It was like, no, Abraham just had sex with Hagar, and Hagar was still Sarah's handmaiden or whatever. But here they were clearly saying, oh no, Hagar became Abraham's second wife. Gross. So now he has 2 different individuals that he has sex with, and he has Ishmael first and then Isaac, and then Hagar gets sent away when like her boy grew up, and it's like they got sent away because it was like the whole dynamics of a adult boy having 2 wives didn't work. And so it was like Hagar got rejected, and then Abraham and Sarah, they said something that didn't make any logical sense in this dramatized theater version of this story, where it's like, oh, we'll just have to pray to God and God will forgive us. And it's like, well, did you stop having sex with Hagar? was Hagar already pregnant? And you're like, oh, we'll just have to make the best of the situation and just, you know, um, do our best to forgive each other and ask God to forgive us. It didn't make logical sense to me. So, you know, I don't know. I don't understand why that's in this story, because that's sexual immorality, having more than one wife. And a lot of Christians try to tell me, oh, things were different back in the 1800s or the 300s or the 400s or the 500s or the 200s. They had better genetics back then. It's like, I'm sorry, if this really happened in the 200s and the 300s, and you had greater light and more truth because you were actually closer to the flood, and you did this bad of sexual immorality, did this really happen, or are there a drastically huge missing details where we just don't understand the true story of Abraham and Sarah? So that's my premise, is there's drastically different details where you don't understand what happened. You know, who knows? You know, I don't know. But it's like morally disgusting. Or there's this other option of, if, you know, there are these stories, there was an author that wrote these stories down, they may have been fictional stories only. What happened is someone came in the past and they spoke a whole bunch of curses over these stories and put their own thoughts and ideas into them, and it got this messed up. And it made it so, like, all the books appeared differently or something. Because why are there so many? Why, if you compare them, are you getting different ideas? Why, if you compare them, they don't exactly agree with each other? And if they're written in English, how come some of the stories, they use different names for some of the stories? You know, why wouldn't you use the same name? So, moving on, you know, Abraham wants his son Isaac to marry a relative in the family. So they go to, you know, they send the servant, Abraham's servant, a boy servant, to go pick a wife for Isaac, and he finds Rebecca, and the grandfather is Nahor, and that's Abraham's brother. So Rebecca is the granddaughter of Abraham's brother. So again, they're genetically related, Isaac and Rebecca. So then they have twins, and there's this whole thing with the twins where it's like, Rebecca swears that she heard a voice from God saying the youngest will serve the oldest. Sorry, I'm twisting things around. She hears that the oldest will serve the younger. Well, Isaac takes what Rebecca said as, that doesn't mean the oldest doesn't get the birthright, because they're going on this whole thing of, okay, the oldest not only gets the birthright, all the inheritance, but becomes the priest of the family. So if there's like a bunch of duties and ceremonies that a priest is supposed to learn to perform the duties of priest, then what's going on is, like, there's this idea of, if you're a pastor or you're a priest, you're serving your family. It's part of the birthright. So it goes over how Jacob wanted the birthright, And Esau wanted to get out of it, so he purposely sold his birthright to Jacob because he wanted to be able to marry whoever he wanted and go do whatever he wanted, and he didn't want the whole birthright responsibilities. But he did want the blessings, so when it was time for Esau to be blessed, Rebecca and Jacob schemed to steal the blessing also, because Esau didn't want to be cursed in any way. So he got mad, and so he threatened to kill Jacob, and so then Jacob goes off back to Rebecca's family and his uncle, and he ends up marrying two different adult girls, Leah and Rachel. So he has more than one wife. Again, and he marries his cousin, so there's, the cousin incest thing happening. Disgusting. And Jacob works 14 years for Rachel. Okay, continuing on. So then you have Jacob eventually parting ways with his uncle. Rachel steals her father's idols. And again, it seems like maybe not everyone understands Jacob's religion, or he's not teaching them properly. Was he taught properly all the religious stuff? Anyway, so Jacob sees angels, and he's like, okay. He's comforted, gets closer. Esau is like talking to his wife and is like, okay, what do we do? So they send 400 men and they're on their way. But Esau's wife was like, he's gonna probably come and take all the possessions that you have and try to make you serve him or whatever. And so, Jacob's really scared that Esau is gonna murder him and his whole entire family. So he's like, what do we do? And he's discussing it with Rachel and different individuals, and it's like, well, send him gifts. And so they send gifts, or they sent a message and be like, I am your servant. And then Esau doesn't believe, but then Esau does have a dream, and it's like, don't harm your brother. So, but he doesn't believe that Jacob's gonna get rich on his own and that he has tons of possessions. So then they, before they meet up, Isaac does fight with the Lord. It seemed like it was the Lord or an angel or something. And then he's like, yeah, I will not let you go until you bless me. And so Jacob's name gets turned to Israel. Okay. And then you have this whole thing of, okay, Esau and them part ways, and then before the whole family is able to see Isaac, the grandfather, Rachel dies and bears another son, and then Jacob, Israel does see his father again. And then with Your Story Hour, it put the events of Dinah, Leah's daughter. She got the whole incident of what happened with Dinah and the king of Shechem. It happened before Joseph got sold into slavery, one of Rachel's sons. So you have this whole context that the boys, they fight a lot with other foreigners or other people in the land. So they're constantly getting to wars, and they're okay killing or murdering other people to defend their territory, whatever. And so Jacob's concerned that, a bunch of foreigners will gang up together and then surprise them, attack them, and be like, slaughter them all. So, Joseph, it sounds like, if it's implied, but maybe Joseph actually was just, trying to be a good son and tell on his brothers to let them, his father know, because they might need correction. Sorry about the burp. To be able to avoid being murdered and killed. And so he starts having dreams and stuff of like, okay, like everyone's gonna bow down. And he even had a dream about Leah and his father bowing down or whatever. And so his brothers got really, really mad, like, no, we're not going to bow down to you. We're not going to serve you. And so, like, he's just trying to obey his father, do the right thing, inform his father where their whereabouts and everything. And it sounds like he's doing his best to love his brothers in spite of there being, like, 4 different adult girls that Jacob ended up having sex with, because he not only got Leah and Rachel, but he had sex with their handmaids too, because, that's what Rachel and Leah wanted for some reason. So what is the real story? Like, why would Joseph love his brothers? Why wouldn't he just be like, I'm not gonna love any of you because Rachel was my mama. Leah and these other 2 girls, they're not my mama. Like, why is he trying to do his best to love all of his brothers? Because that's what I kind of got from the Your Story, Our version. And he was just trying to understand the dreams that he was having. He was trying to hover over his brothers and be more important to them. And so it's like, well, what's with the dreams? Like, why did the brothers like tear it apart, and why were they so negative? Anyways, they ended up selling him into slavery, told their father that a wild beast killed and murdered Joseph, and then Potiphar ended up buying Joseph, and ended up, because everything Joseph did, he was doing his best to work hard and be productive, and it seemed like he was able to learn the different sections of this messed up language, and he was becoming more and more successful because with everything that he was learning to do, that, Potiphar actually made him in charge of the whole household. And then it's like, well, then Potiphar's wife saw Joseph, and then was like, come to me, I want you, blah 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 blah. But in one version of the Bible, like, I remember reading, it said, and Joseph married Potiphar's daughter. And I was like, wait a second, I thought Potiphar's wife made moves on Joseph. Then why did he marry Potiphar's daughter? Okay, so maybe, again, someone was drunk and they messed up the story and they didn't understand that it was really Potiphar's daughter that was into Joseph. And, maybe because Joseph was a slave, it's like, I'm sorry, this ain't gonna happen. You have to get out of the slave position or something. I'm gonna send you to prison because I don't want my daughter, and you getting married, okay? Or maybe it wasn't the custom of the Egyptians for a slave to marry their master. I mean, what is going on with Joseph's story? Because You can't have one Bible be like, oh yeah, and Potiphar allowed Joseph to marry his daughter. And then it says in the same Bible, oh yeah, it was Potiphar's wife that made the moves on Joseph, sexual romantic moves. And like, I want to have sex with you, Joseph. And so it's like, yeah, something's really messed up with the story of Joseph if Joseph actually married Potiphar's daughter. So I wonder what the original story is, because probably someone was drunk and they spoke tons of curses over these stories. And so they put in a whole bunch of sexual immorality. They were probably thinking about their wife being naked or something. And then they're like, oh yeah, sister, wife, half-sister, wife, Potiphar's wife, Potiphar's daughter. Yeah, Mary Joseph. Yeah, like, who knows what they were thinking. I don't know. That's if you believe in the principle that you have the ability to speak positivity over your life and eventually it be implemented and that those positive changes come to pass. And you can speak negativity into your life and negative stuff can keep coming. But it seems like no matter how many times I try to speak positive words and sayings and blessings, it's like someone comes in and is like, okay, we're gonna put negativity back into your life. And it's just like, I can't even get a day of a break, is basically how it's going. So then you have, again, okay, Joseph being thrown into prison for whatever really happened. Who knows? Again, your story hour is your story hour. It's a theater drama, making the Bible more interesting. It was interesting, but I'm kind of more doing a comparison of here's what different versions of the Bible say, here's what they said. So again, in this story, it was Potiphar's wife that came on to Joseph. So the stuff that I was bringing up before of like, why did Joseph in a different version of the Bible say that Potiphar's daughter and Joseph got married? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So you have Joseph eventually being in charge of prison, but in your story hour, it was very clear that Potiphar was in charge of the executions, which it was implied he's really in charge of prison, but he had someone else oversee the whole prison system. So, like that individual ended up getting more and more counsel from Joseph, and so Joseph was a prisoner, and he just ended up making Joseph in charge of the whole prison while he was in prison. And so then he ended up, talking to the butler and the baker, and they had dreams, and Joseph interpreted the dreams, and they came to pass. Where it's like in 3 days, one person got restored to their position, and then in the other 3 days, one of them got hung. And then Joseph was like, remember me when you get back to your position. But then I think approximately 2 years went by or something, and then Pharaoh had dreams that there would be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, and Joseph was the only one that could interpret it. But before Pharaoh went to Joseph, the astrologers, the ones that could interpret dreams and stuff, they're like, only the gods can interpret this dream, and the gods are blocking the interpretation to be given to us. So then it was like the person that got restored to the position mentioned Joseph, they get him out of prison, and And Joseph's like, you also need a plan to, store tons of food so that way you can save your people. And that's why God gave you this dream. So it seemed like they all confirmed it. And then they set Joseph up to be the second in command below Pharaoh, the governor, to be in charge of getting them through the situation. And he got a wife and had 2 sons during the first 7 years. And then famine spread all over the whole face of the earth. That is very clear in here. The whole face of the earth. So your story hour is bringing out the perspective. That means North America, South America, Antarctica, the North Pole, Europe, Russia, Asia, India, Australia. The whole entire world went through a famine, even like Africa. And the only way that the whole entire world were saved was by going to Egypt. So that means like whatever Bible that your story, our Uncle Dan and Aunt Sue are using has more details in that Bible, probably of what the whole world meant, because when I think whole world, I think literally the whole world. And so they were able to save the whole entire world, people from the whole world. And so that meant that Egypt got super rich. If you're reading between the lines, like your story hour didn't really go into that. But it went into the how by Potiphar allowing Joseph to be like in charge of his whole household, it made Potiphar richer and richer and richer and more successful. So Joseph knew how to learn with what was given to him and figure out things how to make everything more efficient and run more smoothly. Again, he probably learned enough skills or a decent amount of skills from his father to be able to do that, if you really believe the story happened. Okay, so continuing on. It like, again, that means the rest of the family, Jacob, Israel, and the rest of the brothers, they needed to go to Egypt to buy grain. And here it goes over in more details, like Joseph actually discussed things with his wife, like, my brothers showed up, what do? I don't trust them. They sold me as a slave. They got jealous of me being having dreams. I think if they know who I am and I just told them, they would take advantage. I want to make sure my younger brother Benjamin's okay. I need to test them. So he puts them through a whole test to be like, have you actually changed? Because he knew the character of his brothers. They were bad. They weren't good individuals. They sold him into slavery. They killed a bunch of people in Shechem with the whole Dinah situation. It didn't go into what happened with Dinah, but I mean, there was stuff going on where it's like, hey, there's more information than Uncle Dan and Aunt Sue have than aren't in the Bible versions that I have access to right now. So what Bible did they have? So, but if they did pass the test, and then the weird thing happens. Okay, so it says that it says, like, eventually another pharaoh rose up that didn't care that Joseph was the one that helped make Egypt rich. So this pharaoh didn't care, and they decided to tax all the Israelites and everything but it referred to the descendants of Joseph as the Israelites only. Like in the beginning, it used that phrase, the descendants of Joseph. So there could be another story where the other descendants went back to Canaan after the 7 years of famine were over, and they might have, just parted ways. So then it's like the descendants, the remainder were like the Israelites, really, from the Manasseh and Ephraim only. If we're going by what your story hour tells you. So it's like, it's bringing up more questions, because it's like, why would you say the descendants of Joseph if that isn't in the Bible that you have? So then they got taxed and taxed and taxed, and then they turned them into slaves. And then they wanted to control the population. So like, okay, let's throw the baby boys into the river. And then it's okay. Then you have Moses being born, and there's already Miriam and Aaron. And the parents tell Miriam, hey, go to the river and get river grass. Okay, what is river grass? I have never seen river grass in my whole entire life. When I have studied history, no one mentioned how in Egypt there is such a thing as river grass. There's reeds, but they didn't say it was grass. It didn't look like grass. But if you take what is said in this story into context with what is described, it's like the river grass might have been able to float in the river. So if you because it didn't mention that they put pitch on this river grass, so but they could have like done it in such a way that it's weaved together in a basket so tightly that water doesn't get through it at all, and then it floats, this river grass, and it's in a basket, and so the baby could just float in the river and be safe. And so also it goes over how Pharaoh's daughter found Moses, decided to adopt him, and Moses was given back to his real mother, his real father, and his sister and brother for 12 years, because Pharaoh's daughter was like, please raise him for me until he becomes 12, and then he gets transferred to the palace. So that's what happened. So this is the part where I was like busy doing something else at the same time, so I didn't hear all the details properly. But it seemed like, yes, Moses did, when he became an adult, he got in trouble with Pharaoh. It didn't specify exactly. It wasn't clear to me exactly what Moses did. He could have broken the law in a different way where he didn't murder an Egyptian, but he could have stood up for the Israelites or Joseph's descendants, and he knew he was going to get in major trouble. He could have whipped an Egyptian or something. I don't know, but he got in trouble with the law. And so he fled, and he got a wife, Zipporah. He saw a burning bush, and miracles happened, and so he's like, I need to go back to Egypt to free everybody. And Zipporah and the two sons, they were going with him. And Moses changed his mind. And he's like, no, I don't think it's a good idea that you come with me. You need to go back to your father. But he was herding sheep. Okay, so then an angel appears to Moses, and he tells them, oh, Aaron's on his way. The King of Kings sends an angel, anyone who serves him, to guide him. So what's going to happen is certain things that happen with the burning bush, like I'm actually going to be the one that implements it and does those things, because I have the power to do those things for you, but it will happen. Okay, so and then, Moses was thinking like, oh, I can't talk very good anymore. Like I've spent so many times in this because it was like 40 years or something. It's like I've been here forever. Like I'm not current with, the section of the messed up language that the Egyptians use. And there was nothing about the Lord or the King of Kings or the angel getting mad that, or being like, this implied thing, you should be able to speak the native section of the language. With the Egyptians, there was no getting mad. It was like a mutual understanding between the angel, it seemed, even the King of Kings, that, yes, Moses, you need someone to translate for you because you're on a different section of the language right now. So it could take you a while to get, used to it again. So it was like, okay, having Aaron come was a good thing, and they discussed things, and then Aaron helped convince the Israelites. But one of the Israelites brought up the whole thing of, oh yeah, you abandoned us. You left us. You didn't stay with us. You didn't fight for us years ago. And they kind of like insinuated that by Moses leaving, it made things worse. So they weren't, happy that he left. So it's like the way they were talking, it sounded like, oh, Moses could have actually stayed, but he like definitely was gonna get in trouble, and he thought the reason was the best thing to do was to flee. Okay, so they go before Pharaoh, and to get a visitation through Pharaoh, they're like, the King of Kings has told us to come to you. So they come in. Oh, they're Israelites. They're Joseph's descendants. Great. Okay. Give us 3 days in the wilderness to go worship our God and do sacrifices or whatever. Okay. So give us 3 days. Okay. And Pharaoh kept saying no. So they go through a whole series of plagues. So the main plague that stood out to me was the one where there were flies. Okay, because he mentions that the flies were unbearable. So I live in North America. I'm not going to say where. Canada is on the border. There's one of the Great Lakes nearby. So, but in this area, we have flies, we have mosquitoes, we have gnats, we have fruit flies. When they come super close to you, they do become unbearable. And the mosquitoes bite you and suck your blood. So, like, something popped in my brain that it's like with these plagues, there was a time limit. The way it's described, it's like this didn't happen for years and 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 years. It was like a bunch of plagues that happened in sequence close together. Then the plague stopped once the Israelites were free and went back on their way to Canaan. Okay, so eventually the plagues stopped. Well, though the way it's described is like, oh yeah, that like they went away. It's like it doesn't mention flies before that being unbearable. So, but we have a season in North America. I don't know if it's in other places of the world. Feel free to comment in the section below if you have trouble, severe problems with mosquitoes or flies biting you. sort of fly by biting you. But it's in the season of like the middle to the end of spring, full summer, the beginning of fall, where you have mosquitoes and there's black flies that could bite you and hurt you, and like some of them are like trying to get your blood for some reason, and it's like year after year. So it's like the Bible that we have is referring to that whole situation of being a plague, but maybe there was like tons more of them. But it's like if you go into the woods, they're like a decent amount where sometimes they could be in swarms where it seems like it's unbearable for them to for you to be around them and stuff like that. And it's like, so I got this idea. It's like, do we have the plague of flies, or bugs or mosquitoes? And every season they just keep coming back and repeat. Like, why do we have the plague of flies that are constantly there for like one season over and over and over and over again? And it's like the bug spray doesn't always work, no matter whether you use natural or of the stuff that is frequent that you buy in the store. It doesn't always work. So that was like an idea that came up, is like, do we have the plague of flies going on right now in some way that's worse than what was in the Bible? Because like in the Bible, it's like you go through trials, persecution, and tribulation for a season. You go through, you pass the trial, then it's done. It's over with. You don't have to go through it again, you know? But we're on this loop of repeat. So that's also why I'm questioning whether this Bible is true. Everyone told me it was true, but in these stories, it's like persecution, trials, tribulation. It's for a period of time, and then it ends, and then you're supposed to get success again in your life, because the trial, the tribulation, the persecution you went through, it's supposed to teach you a lesson or whatever, help you overcome what you did wrong. And then you overcome, and then you build up to be more and more successful, you know? And it's like, well, how come my trials, my persecution, my tribulation, how come it never ends? And it's been going on for years and years and years. I try to get more blessings, and more negativity comes in through other people. So I'm just like, I'm doing my best to be as positive as I possibly can, but it's like when you have someone all of a sudden like, okay, you're trying to be more positive and, you know, feel like you're being more productive in your daily life. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't like that. You're talking in a gentle, calmer voice, and I can hear you through the wall. Did you really hear me through the wall? Or are you just saying that? You know? Like, what is going on? Why is it when I can get away with doing some videos sometimes at night, you know, in a gentler voice, and then you do one that goes on a topic of very touchy subjects, and it's like, no, you're not allowed to do that. So, again, just a question. It seems like someone's listening to the devil or Satan or evil adversaries that hate me and don't love me at all. Okay, so yeah, the firstborn, the last plague was the firstborn of the Egyptians died, and then they were allowed to go and leave Egypt. So in the very last chapter, chapter 24 of your story hour, it goes over how the Egyptians were like worried, and they mention like, weren't they supposed to come back after 3 days? And so it's like, I guess Pharaoh thought that, oh, they're going to return in 3 days. Again, that's what the angel, and it seemed like the Lord of Lords told them to tell Pharaoh, is we're going to go for 3 days, and then, you know, and then and then it was like assumed that they would come back, but it was like really they were escaping. So there was this idea of the King of Kings and the angel that was sent to Moses, and they're like telling Pharaoh, hey, we're gonna go out for 3 days. They finally got that okayed. They took all their belongings, their cattle, children, girls, boys of all ages, left, and Pharaoh thought they were literally going to come back in 3 days. And so that's why they went after them and followed them to the Red Sea. And then, like, again, Moses and the angel performed that miracle, parting the Red Sea, turned into dry ground. They walked over the pathway, and yeah, that's what happened. And then at the end, they're singing, the song about being thrown into the Red Sea, and the depths have covered them. They covered them. They sank into the bottom like a stone. So, so overall, I definitely think your story hour is definitely entertaining, very entertaining. I would say they're definitely good stories, way better than just reading any of the false Bibles. Very more entertaining. But would I want kids or children to really listen to this, or teenagers listen to this? Really, I think this would be a story of like when it's the time of love, when before you get married or after you get married. Here's examples of what not to do in marriage. Don't call your wife your sister or your aunt or your grandma or your daughter or your cousin. That's disgusting. And so I still have this premise. Was there a drunk guy that they were super drunk and they were reading the original stories? Or if this is a true religion, they were reading the stories from this true religion, and they were so drunk that they spoke tons of curses over it. Or who knows, it could have been a bunch of people. They were so drunk, they spoke tons of different curses over. That's why you get tons of different materials and variations of these stories. But there's tons of sexual immorality. And because the details do matter, and I don't care what anyone else says, but you need more of the details to understand what truly happened. Because what if these stories don't have sexual immorality in them at all? Maybe someone cursed all the sexual immorality into the stories. Because I have a hard time believing that if there is individuals at the very beginning who are the creators, the designers of people's genetics, and how we're formed and how we're designed at the top, that they would purposely allow sin and suffering to be this bad to happen in real life, where it's like, oh, a genetic related brother and sister married each other, became husband and wife, had sex with each other, and it was allowed to happen. Because in the current version that I'm reading, are in different versions of the Bible, it literally says there's abominations, and it seemed like these sexual sins were an abomination to the Lord. but yet somehow Abraham is allowed to be the patriarch of the Christian religion, and it doesn't make logical sense that how in the Leviticus law system it's like, you don't have sex with your father's sister, don't have sex with your father's wife. Like, why would you, like, if you understand genetics and how family relations are properly supposed to be, why would you need like, why, like, wouldn't that be a no-brainer? Wouldn't that be common sense? You only have sex with your spouse, and you're only one spouse. Like, I don't know. So something's not adding up. There's definitely inconsistencies with these stories. They're like all over the place. They're not consistent. Like, the names aren't always the same. So it's like, it'll be interesting to see if I could ever get my hands on the original material and in a language in this language that I speak. I mean, do I need to learn the full language? Do we need to figure out how to put the whole language back together so we can communicate? What are the proper sounds of the letters and the alphabet? Because, like, Christians, like, they keep saying, oh, it ain't gonna happen in this lifetime. We're not gonna learn how to speak properly. We need Jesus to come to teach us how to speak properly. But they make it seem like it's gonna happen in a twinkling of an eye, just in a moment. Like, all of a sudden, boom, you're gonna be able to just speak perfectly or whatever. And like at the Tower of Babel, and like automatically speak properly, and the language is back together. And well, is someone gonna bless the language back together? Can you truly speak positivity over someone to the extreme where it's like, okay, here you go. What if someone never learned this language and all the sections or all the accents in full? Can you just speak positivity on to that person? Like, you never knew this. Here you go. I'm gonna just like put this into your brain. How does that work? Because it doesn't make sense that if you never learn something, that just all of a sudden automatically, boom, it's gonna be in your brain. Don't you have to learn something first? And then it's possible, like, if you forget something, like, or if you have severe memory loss or something, that could be put back into your brain, all that knowledge. But if you haven't, is that knowledge going to really be put back into your brain if you haven't learned how to be successful in certain stuff to perfection? Like, but that's what all these Christians are saying, like, oh, it's going to just automatically put into our brains in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the second coming of Christ. Like, the language is going to be healed, and boom. It's like, well, if there is other materials out there where there's this, how do we put it? Okay, things were perfect here, the language and how things looked. Okay, then it got degraded and was worse, after Noah's flood. And then, the language made things worse because the language got messed up. And then you have different sections at the very least, or it's put together in a different way where it's like, you may have limited vocabulary and definitions, but then you have the bottom level where it's like you don't even have the proper pronunciation of the letters and the proper definitions of the meanings of words and stuff like that. So shouldn't there be this evolving process to like go back up to get the proper language, because it's like, can you really like do heaven if you don't know how to speak properly? Because if the language is so bad that on this level all you would be doing is speaking mostly negativity or curses, um like, can you truly just, oh, we're gonna go here, without like gradually transitioning to this level of 100% positivity, where there would be allowance of negativity, where it's like, hey, would you want to go hang out? Well, actually, I made an agreement with so and so to go hang out with them, so you have to be able to say no. Or, yeah, I made plans to eat this. Thanks for inviting me for this dinner, but I was really looking forward to eating what I already pre-made or whatever for food. Or I already made plans to do this activity. I'm sorry I can't participate this time, but I'm interested in spending time with you some other time. So that's where it's like there would be allowance of negativity, because you need to be able to say no, like I made plans with somebody else. So where is this transition to get back to that super positive type of environment? Don't you need proper materials? Where are the proper materials? Do the materials exist somewhere here in the world? Where are they? I would like to get my hands on them. Are they free? If they're super expensive, how much do they cost? Do they work? Because it's very hard to do this thing of like, if you can't look at everything for free and really try it out and do an assessment of like, is this proper educational materials? Because to speak properly, you really do need audible stuff, right? You need the proper letters given to you. You can't be having this thing where, hey, pee means urination. It also means the, like, hey, you can eat a pea, because there's a food that's called a pea, P-E-A, pea. But then P is short for urination for some reason. And then P is also the letter of the one of the letters of the alphabet for English. So that doesn't make logical sense that it would have 3 different definitions right from the beginning. So something's really messed up with the language. But, if you want to stay in this version of negativity and believe that everything's fine and hunky-dory and everything's beautiful and wonderful and the world is getting better, when you implement changes into the education system, that if you're an adult or a child or a teenager, no matter where you are in age, we're going to implement a new educational system where you get paid to learn so you can have your life be successful. Learn to make your life successful in all areas of your life, because then you'll have enough money to pay all the bills, and getting paid to gather your food or help gather your food, whether it's at the grocery store, get paid to clean your own home, to cook and clean yourself, to do your own laundry. If you can pay someone else to do it for you, then there should be a system where you get paid to do it for yourself. Because, how are you supposed to make enough money to do everything if you don't have enough time to do everything yourself? You might need to hire someone to help you out from time to time. So wouldn't it be wonderful to be on a different kind of governmental system where you get paid for cleaning and cooking and learning? Because then you're going to be super motivated to improve your life and be positive and mingle in a positive way with everyone else around you. It's just an idea. I don't know how to implement it because literally I didn't learn how to do anything properly and be successful in any area of my life, including religion. I really tried to make the Christian religion work, and it failed me because I just got attacked too much, where there's evidence where it's like definitely someone is cursing me and speaking more curses over me than I can speak positivity over my life. So I'm still trying to do my best. So here is, let's end with a blessing. Bless, bless, bless me now to have way more positivity in my life. Bless may there be blessings for the whole entire world, for drastic positive changes to happen everywhere in the whole entire world, where you get true educational materials that teach you how to pronounce the letters of this language properly, and give the proper educational materials that give you positive and negative words, and give you the proper meaning and definitions of those words so we can speak properly 100%. And if there are stories or religions, blessings over the whole entire world to get a true, rightful religion that is 100% true and doesn't have truth and error mixed in with it. And if there is error and truth mixed in with false religions, that you get the truth of the purpose of why it was written, maybe to understand negative concepts. So bless the whole entire world to get proper materials that help us to evolve up and become better and better positive people. So if you did listen to this whole entire video, thank you for hearing and watching this video. If you have any questions concerning your story hour, feel free, album 1, feel free to put it in the description below. If there's some details in this version of your story hour that I forgot to mention, feel free to comment in the comment section below. And if you have listened to the Bible Comes Alive series, album 1 by Your Story Hour, did you like it? Was this entertaining to you? What are the moral values and lessons that you found in it? So, again, I wanted to be like Joseph as a child. I wanted to be successful, and it described Joseph as being able to be so successful that anything that he did as far as work, he was successful. That's what I was striving for. And something's so wrong with the educational system that I can't be successful like Joseph. So that is the real reason, part of the reason why I came to the conclusion that these are false Bibles. That is, something is wrong on a drastic, massive level. And I do not know what to do to change it. So that's why I spoke blessings over materials, to be like, let's get the truthful stories back in. Let's get the more accurate Bible of like, where are the details of the story, because there could be way more details that make these stories way more positive. And I'm like surprised that people just don't care about those details. They could still be details in a broad and vague way, but give more details to help complete the story and be like, oh, that makes way more sense. So I hope that if you have watched this and listened to this, that you will want the original work. What is the original work? We need to read it for ourselves. We need to understand this for ourselves. If there are science experiments that to do to prove certain things, we need to do science experiments for ourselves. We shouldn't just take the word of someone else in so many different areas of our life just because someone says it is true. We should be critically thinking about all these things. So please take that to heart. Again, you are free to have your own opinions. You are free to have your own perspectives. You are free to have your own viewpoints, and you are free to have your own ideas. This is the whole point of sharing this video, is to be like, this is my perspective. This is my opinion. This is my viewpoint. This is my idea. You are free not to agree with me, but can you at least be respectful if you disagree? I do not have the ability to believe that the Christian religion, these different broad and vague Bibles that have drastically tons of missing details, are true, because there's tons of sexual immorality in the Old Testament. And people make these statements and like, you should believe this. And I'm just sorry, but I am not okay being a descendant from Adam and Eve because they were genetically related to each other. If you think about the genetics of the story, and it doesn't tell you one way or another. It doesn't say the Lord made Adam and Eve's genetics to be 100% different, even though Eve came from a rib. So where are the details to support that if that is really the truth? So I'm not okay with Abraham marrying his half-sister. I'm not okay with brothers and sisters marrying each other and becoming husband and wife. I'm not okay with cousins becoming husband and wife to each other, because in today's society, that's a no, that's gross, that's disgusting, that's incest, that's a no, it's gross. And it's like, I don't know why people would gravitate to religion where it's like, it's okay for you to do that, when certain sections of Leviticus are like, no, it's really not. It's an abomination to the Lord. So it's like, again, you have Bibles that contradict each other. And that's probably why more and more people are becoming atheists or agnostic, because we need proof that it's true. We're not just going to take your word for it that it is true. We need proof. So where is the evidence? Give us evidence that your story is legit, and then we'll believe. And waiting for the second coming of Christ is not evidence, because it's like, trust us that the Christ is gonna come someday. I'm sorry. Well, you kind of need to see Christ come to believe that it's the truth. And if Christ comes and doesn't implement drastic changes and teaches everybody, if Christ comes and doesn't teach everyone how to be successful, get rid of all the sexual immorality, give the truthful stories in full detail of what really happened, I'm sorry. I also have a problem believing in this whole animal sacrificial system of like, oh yeah, you have to sacrifice a living being to God. It's in the beginning as a symbol of one day Jesus dying on the cross for your sins. That doesn't sound like a very loving God to me if that's what had to happen in the beginning. you know, like, what is the truth? What are the full details of the story? They matter. So I wonder what they are. Do we have any of those books here somewhere and people are just hiding them from the masses? Like, are you against them for some reason because there's some scary pictures in them? What's going on? Uh, like, where are the more detailed Bibles? So, again, hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry that there was negativity in here. I hope that you found the positivity that you could find in this video, because I still believe the truth will set you free, and that is a principle that is taught in these false Bibles. John 8:32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I believe in that principle. So there still could be some truth or some morals, some lessons that you could glean from these Bibles, or different stories in different ways. This is an audio version of it that was entertaining to me. So that is what I'm trying to do is, hey, this is bad stuff to me. Can you find the positivity in it? Can you find the good in it? That is what I have been doing my whole life, as far as when these books were placed into my hand. So, can you find the good? Can you decipher this is truth, this is error in these Bibles? Sexual immorality is definitely the way things are described. No, I'm sorry. I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't marry your half sister. You shouldn't marry your cousin. That's gross to me. But maybe to some of you in society, that isn't gross and disgusting. So if that is your perspective, if that is your opinion, I have to be respectful and respect that that is your viewpoint, your idea, your perspective, and your opinion. So until next time.